I'm ranaal-falaki.
I'm best.If.
And welcome to
the Nail It podcast.
This is your place to lead better, live fully and laugh more. It's your blueprint to optimal performance. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Nail It podcast, your place to
Lead better, live fully, laugh more.
Yay!
Yeah.
Welcome, Bhavin. So
Hey.
I'm sorry my background is a bit blurry.
Yeah, right.
I know, I'm actually in Sicily.
Nice. It's all right.
Ask me why.
Why are you in Sicily, Rana?
Other than the fact that I've just come inside, having sat somewhere where I literally am staring at Mount Etna, because I am working on a project to create an adventure-based Nail It retreat.
Wow. Is that hot off the press?
So this is what we originally, when we launched Nail It, and all the stories that are in the book are about people coming to the Nail It experience, which was a 3-day experience. It was very immersive. People would come, they would stay in a big house. They would really be taken through their paces, having to wake up really early, sometimes go to bed late, and they never knew what was coming next, which of course is all part of the exercise, because it exercises you to be in the moment and so on. And so I always combine the mindset and the teaching and the lessons through fun activities. So I'm scouting out the area. There are some amazing walks around here. There's some freezing cold rivers that you could jump into. There are, some phenomenal experiences. So yeah, I'm on the scout.
That's an immersive experience. It's like a murder mystery. It's
Yeah.
That'd be awesome, mate. I can scout out some places for you if you like.
You can, yeah. Immersive transformation.
That sounds awesome.
Anyway, the background doesn't look it's not my usual beautiful book, so I'm a little bit blurry in the background, but very much clear here and now. So Bhavin, we have an incredible guest today.
We do. We have Zainab, who is a clinician, a facial aesthetic clinician. She's a practice owner. She's an educator, mom, and soon to be a coach. She's just launched something called Evolve, which is combining clinical education, coaching, mentoring in facial aesthetics. And we're excited to talk to her about it. Welcome, Zainab.
Thank you so much, Bhavin and Rana. It's so nice to be here chatting with you guys. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So I love what you guys are doing, and I think it's brilliant. So really honored to be a part of it.
Oh, we love having you here. And because Bhavin didn't say your surname for any of our listeners, Zainab Al-Mukhtar, who...
There's only one Zainab.
There's only one Zainab. However, Zainab, I'm going to pick you up on something, because I always remember way back when in school, and we were learning to write English and think of adjectives, we were always told off for using the word nice.
Did I just use the word nice?
You said it's so nice to be here.
I feel like I'm at school now.
Welcome, Zainab.
I know.
Now you know how Bhavin feels.
Yeah, I just get told off. That's what I'm here for.
I've had Rana as a teacher for a year now, so I know. And it's actually really nice. It keeps me on my toes. I said nice again. So what's wrong with saying nice, Rana?
I want another adjective. I want something more empowering than nice.
Beautiful. Beautiful to be here.
It's really exciting. This is stuff that I feel really passionate about, and it's refreshing. For years, I've felt that I could see some of the patterns around me, within me, as a dentist and a healthcare professional, and someone in a really evolving, busy field like aesthetics as well. And I knew that this was a topic that needed a deeper dive, and it just feels so refreshing to have people be so committed to pushing forward this messaging and discussing it, normalizing it, and shifting perspective. So I'm actually really thrilled to be here chatting about it.
I love that. You see what can come from nice, Bhavin?
That's exactly why we're here. Zainab, what we like to open with, let's start with what we open with. So what's your favorite quote and why?
Okay. So it is Be the Change That You Wish to See in the World by Gandhi. And the reason is because I find it really empowering very often when there is something we don't like, we look for what's wrong with the situation or with external factors that we feel we need to change around us. And that can lead to a lot of frustration and a lot of inaction, and a lot of stagnation. And what I find is that when we focus more on our part in that, whatever it is, day to day, bigger picture, smaller picture, whatever it is, when we focus first on how we're showing up in that situation or in that space, I think that's where the power is. So hugely empowering to kind of take responsibility. And I think that's when you start to see more potential to shift perspective or to shift a culture or an ethos or how a system is running. And so really, I really, really am a firm believer it starts with myself. And so that anchors me day to day, whether it's as a mother, if I'm seeing something that I think I need to sort out, I go back to, where am I in this? Or as a practice owner, the same, sometimes we have expectations, but actually, what am I modeling? How am I showing up? Am I embodying all of that first? So those are the conversations I have with myself, and so that's why I really love this quote. I've always found it to be extremely empowering.
Yeah, I love that. Just repeat it again slowly for our listeners.
Be the change that you wish to see in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something I used to have in my LinkedIn profile as well. And it comes very much from this idea of our core as well, right? And when we think about leadership, actually, I'm quite pedantic about this because a lot of people think leadership is like to lead by example, but that really isn't necessarily how you get people to do things. However, if you change yourself, you change your circumstances, change your personality, change your personal reality. It has to start with you. And what you were talking about very much was that point of self-leadership and self-responsibility. And it's very interesting because the way the brain is programmed is it is programmed to look for what's wrong naturally. It's why we have so much negative self-talk that goes on in our brain. And the reason for that is as human beings, we're programmed to protect ourselves. And if you think in the clinical setting, that's often what happens, right? You get three clinicians to look at a case, and everybody is not looking at what's right first. They're usually looking what they can criticize. And we've had team building sessions done before where we've written four sums on a board, like 1 + 1 = 2, 1 + 3 = 2, and so there's one that's incorrect and another three that are incorrect and one that is correct. And so often it's just a natural test you find in the group when you just say, what do you think of these? The first thing people say are the ones that are wrong, not the sum that is right.
Yeah, that's so interesting because it's the brain trying to keep us safe all the time. It's the job of the brain, isn't it? So we'll look for things that we need to fix or repair, because they look like a threat otherwise, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So, and just on that, like with the whole, it's true that in leadership, being it is not enough. It's being it and then also communicating it. So the messaging has to be really clear. So it's not just like I'm just going to sit here and embody and expect everyone will follow suit. It's both. It's both. But like you hear, as you said, you hear the statements lead by example, but that kind of focuses a lot more on doing. So, I could say I'm doing things, as per how I visualize it should be, but I might struggle to maintain that unless I totally embody the why, the purpose, the ability to do that. So that's why that's another thing. I kind of dissected this quote, and it's not do the change, or it's be the change. So it takes a lot of work to actually first shift perspective, rewire to be it, and then you can deliver it.
Absolutely. And then I've had this quote, right? And I have it in my book. We are human beings, not human doings.
Exactly that.
Well, the
And
second
yet,
part of
most of the
that,
time we end up doing. Sorry, Bab, what did you want?
the bit of what you wish to see in the world. What do you think about that? You said you dissected it, but what about what you wish to see in the world? Do you think that's more of a bigger picture thing in obviously the world the way it is at the moment, and because people feel helpless about what they can do in the world and the change they want to see in the world. But this sort of empowers people to say that even small changes can make a difference to the bigger picture?
You can. So, I mean, this is small scale and big scale. I think it's a constant, like, this can anchor us in many, many situations or in many lenses, whether you zoom in or zoom out. So, I mentioned kind of the day-to-day things, motherhood, practice ownership, whatever it might be in a friendship, in a relationship, all of that's kind of day-to-day living. And then all the things outside of kind of the circle of our control that we wish to see be better can start with us. And I'm not saying that I can necessarily change the world on my own, but if I focus on what's wrong out there, outside the circle of my control, I'm shifting all the responsibility outside, which is very disempowering and ineffective. Instead, if I focus on who am I being in this situation, yes, I feel there's an injustice. It makes me feel sad. It makes me feel angry. I can see it. It's frustrating. But if I focus on it from that lens, then how I'll show up is upset, frustrated, maybe blaming, accusatory, and it doesn't shift anything. If the issue is a lack of peace in the world, then what is needed is more peace, right? So the being will be how I show up in my language. I might feel a certain way, but I've got to regulate and then find the different perspectives and find a way that I can feel peace within the chaos and then be that. Now, does it mean that I stay quiet and not say when I see something wrong? No, but we've got to be really, context is everything here, but we've got to be coming from a voice of how we want the world to look like. So if I want to talk about justice, if I want to talk about peace, if I want to talk about reconciliation, then my language has to be gentle. It needs to be one where we acknowledge different perspectives. It needs to be like that. And the caveat here is it's okay to also call out injustice, because otherwise we don't shift anything if we're just sitting in kind of we're cushioning everything we're saying. Yeah. But, there's a lot of nuance here. But the point is that how I show up in my messaging, so I can say it, but say it in a certain way that embodies how I want to see it be said outside. That makes sense.
It does, but I think if I summarize, what we're really talking about is alignment, right? So you're talking about becoming conscious, becoming a conscious being, and we can go through those seven levels of energy. We can go into victim mode and do nothing and say nothing. We can get angry, we can blame, or we can tolerate and say it's fine. We can find a way to give back and love. We can seek an opportunity. We can bring everybody in. We can pretend almost it isn't even happening because we are just completely energy conscious beings and it's not in our ability. So, but ultimately it's about choice, right? So it's just almost just slowing down. The more you practice this, you don't actually physically slow down, but it's just take a breath. Hold on a minute. Like, how am I really feeling about this situation? And how am I choosing to respond as opposed to react, which is the usual stimulus? And again, if we go back to survival mode, the majority of people react. And they react because you are pre-programmed. You're pre-programmed by the belief systems that you've adopted. You are ultimately a creation of your belief systems. You are programmed because something might trigger your values. So any of these things that are triggered, literally then triggers a reaction. The difference that you're talking about and the idea of being is that we no longer react. We respond, which of course means that we're under less stress anyway, because we are choosing. How do I choose to respond here? I realize I might not be able to do anything about this, but exactly as you said, what is within your control, which then reduces your stress, because you realize you do have some control. You can surrender, you can let it go. It doesn't mean you don't have compassion, but there ends up not being a right or wrong. You may choose not to take a stance. It may be something that's wrong for you, but you then choose from that, okay, I can't do anything about that, but I can do something about my immediate situation. Or I can do something about that by donating to charity or talking to somebody else I know. But if I'm just going to sit there and get myself mega stressed out, it's not actually going to serve me and it's not going to serve anyone else.
No. And I think you've touched really well on values. And this is another thing that anchors. So when we think about responses, sometimes we're, like you just gave some examples, you might feel angry, you might feel frustrated. But going back to those hard moments, going back to our values will shift the decision on how I choose to show up. So one of my core values is communication, compassion. So for me, I might not be silent, I might say, but I'll say it compassionately. So I merge my values together. But, for me to ignore something may be against my values, but I will do it compassionately. So it's just really getting, for me, if, an answer to the question, be the change you wish to see, and answering Bevan's question about the bigger picture, I'm anchored by those values. And that kind of summarizes that, I think, for me.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And actually, now you've reminded me exactly where I have part of that quote, which is on my website, my Dr. Ranaal-Falaki website,
Oh,
because
awesome.
video that plays there, and that's how it ends. Be the change
Mm.
you wish to see in this world, because it starts with you. So again, what you're really talking about, which is so compatible with everything about Nail It and everything I talk about with the Nail It system, and how, yes, it's a system for optimal performance, it's a system for success, sustainable success, but it's also a system to avoid burnout. And
Yeah.
I've been on the road the last few months lecturing, because we're in that speaker season.
Yeah.
I have very much been pointing out to people that burnout, again, is not about actually doing, it's about being out of alignment. And essentially, what happens is we're then seeping out a ton of energy. It's like being in a pasta sieve with very, very big holes. And the whole idea of when you then work on yourself, that's the whole point of personal development. And I know you're so in alignment with this, is you start plugging those holes so you're no longer seeping energy, like the example of being in control. If
Mm.
you understand what you can and cannot control, and you make those choices, then there's going to be less energy seepage, because you're going to be in alignment with yourself. And it really is about
Exactly.
aligning yourself so that you do. And then that's how you preserve your energy and optimize your energy so you can reach.
Yeah. Exactly. This is the whole energy, how we literally control our energy consumption. During when I was fasting, I did like this thing where when I didn't have patience, lunchtime, I would do energy conservation, just lie down. Like that's my energy management. How I structure my week in general. It's all about energy management. Yeah, so totally.
The
Right, so
burnout
we
scene
talk
is this
about.
thing that you hit as opposed to something that is gradual. And a lot of people don't realize they're burnt out. They don't
Mm.
know. I think there's a tool on the website, right? Rena, is that still there? The burnout
Yeah,
test.
yeah. There is a quiz that you can take to assess your burnout risk. It will give you low, medium, or high, and actually give you a number, so you've got something to work towards
Mm,
as you do it. So you could use it repeatedly. Just need to make sure you check your emails, and then you get loads more information
yeah.
from there, as well as then some integrated support. But burnout, I was just, before we get on to that, because this is what leads to burnout, it's just your example, Zainab, about energy management was physical, right? And I think that's part of the issue, is people think, oh, if I eat, drink, sleep, they think of energy in that way, as opposed to your energetic influences. So again, like we have this model in the Nail It system called the IMUS, and those are your energetic influences. So the one we've had already been talking about is identity, your values, your belief system, what makes you you. And if your integrity, if you do things that are out of alignment with yourself, stuff that you don't believe in but you feel forced to do it, if you act inauthentically, which certainly in the world of dentistry, I know the three of us can all say that there are examples of that, where we just smile through things even though we're really stressed out, right? So identity, when we're out of alignment with that, then we lose energy. The M is for mental, so our mental clutter. So the
Mm.
huge amount of energy that goes there, too much to do, mentally condensed, just mind just completely blown. Our emotional stress, our emotional energy. And again, we can optimize that, we can improve that, or it can become drained. The R is for real. So these are the things that you were describing, your physicality. If you've got a headache, if you've got a broken arm, if you're hungry, if you're thirsty,
Yeah.
your energy isn't optimized. S is social. So really important. The three of us are completely compatible, because we're on the same wavelength, and we all believe in growth and development.
Mm.
We know where that gets us, both personally and professionally. But
Mm.
if we hang around with people who drain us, who
Mm,
tire us, who bring us down, who always tell us about what's wrong, not what's right, we feel drained, right? And then, of course,
Mm.
the environment. So the environment that we're in, I'm in the glorious sunshine, my energy is great. But if you're in a room full of fluorescent lighting or somewhere that's noisy or somewhere that's too cold, then again, the environment that you're surrounded in again becomes a drain on your energy. So it's how
Wow.
to optimize those, what I call the energetic influences.
I love that.
Like,
You have summed that up so well. All the layers and all the kind of dimensions of where energy is consumed. That is brilliant. And is that in your book?
that's in the book.
I cannot wait to read it. I have it and I can't wait to get really tucked in. Yeah, this is one I didn't mention. So you're right. We're just talking about kind of physical space and so on. But the biggest game changer for me has been mental space and emotional energy consumption and being really selective and filtering and boundarying that. Like just a little example in terms of mental decisions or cognitive decisions is, and I was sharing this with actually a patient this morning. She's a caregiver, and I'm a firm observer that caregivers are probably a hugest risk, yeah, of burnout. So we were having this conversation, and I was giving her a little bit of an example of how long it can take. She'd express something, and I shared that it takes a while to rewire those habits, you know, because we're often in a state of high alert. There's a sense of urgency. The nervous system is switched on quite a lot when you're a caregiver because you feel like people need something from you all the time. And that's why healthcare professionals and other caregivers, and maybe even teachers and the like, will be at risk, more so than others. Throw in, you know, parenting, and that's really adding to the whole thing. But anyway, it took a long time to rewire these perspectives for me and to really prime my nervous system. And just like a small practical example is, I was so addicted to being very productive because that was my marker of success for the day. Of like, I've cleared the decks, I've answered all my emails, you know, I've seen all my patients and produced lovely results, I've written all my records. Now I'm going to go home and do all the things that I need to do for the children, not be a relaxed person. I might appear to be, but inside, this is a busy mind, a really busy mind, and a really switched on nervous system in order to be able to execute all that in a day. And so, from the point of view of how I now look at that, is permission, big time, permission to focus on the priority of the season, to make a decision at the beginning of the day of like, what are the 3 non-negotiables today? And then the rest will be on an admin day. So there's a lot more compartmentalization, but that's not just so that I have physical rest. It's purely to manage the energy mentally and emotionally. So the practical example is, you know, I might look at my inbox, just dropped off the children, hypothetical, and you know, I look at my inbox and there's 10 new emails there. The old me would have thought, let me just answer all these before I start work. And now I look at them and go, are any of these really time sensitive? No. Okay, well, I have tomorrow's my admin day. I'm going to go do that walk around the block before I start because that's going to get me my endorphins up. I'm going to get really energized, feel empowered, and be much more productive and present and all the rest of it with my patients. So the decision making has changed, not because I physically didn't have the time, because I could have got that done in half an hour, but because I choose to prioritize optimal mindset for the day rather than clearing the decks.
Yeah, you've chosen, and that's the key word, right? You've chosen and prioritized, and
Yeah.
the priorities become in alignment with the big picture. Zainab, obviously, I know your story, but some of our listeners may not. So I know we're kind of venturing into burnout territory and alignment and all the rest of it. Would you share with our listeners just a little bit of that
Oh,
story so we can then bring in those solutions following on?
yeah. So, as a clinician, I have always felt like work wasn't the thing that led me towards what I feel was nearly burnout. And it was never an acute diagnosis or any such thing, but it was what I classified as, if this isn't burnout, it's coming real soon. So anyway, that was around 2023 when I noticed. But by then I was already 13 years into clinical practice, love work. And people used to say, how do you do this? And honestly, I thrive. I was really enjoying it. And I think it's only when new hats came into the picture that all of a sudden I realized there are too many hats now. And so I was doing dentistry and facial aesthetics, both at what I felt was, you know, rapidly evolving, and I was trying to really do everything at a really high level, and I think I was producing really amazing results on both ends. And again, I was really very much in flow until I wasn't. And in 2019, we bought the practice, and then I also got pregnant that year. And I felt that one child at the time I was managing it all, but then the second child, and then immediately after that, COVID happened. That combination, plus then leading the practice through COVID, was a lot. And what happened to my nervous system is I just went into overdrive. I just thought, yep, I've got this. I'm going to carry on working hard. I'm going to carry on leading. I'm going to carry on, putting in the hours, delegating. But I didn't give myself permission at all to rest. I had a very quick transition from work to home without pause. And yeah, and I just carried on like that for about 2 years. And then by the end of 2022, I realized this doesn't feel good. I was tired all the time. And that kind of excitement wasn't there. And I was like, this is not how this is meant to feel like. I know very well what it feels like to love my job, because I loved it for more than 10 years. So what is going on here? And I'm like, and I still love it. So what is it? And I just realized that I was trying to be perfect at everything at the same time, with no buffer space at all in between. And yeah, so I noticed it, and I just thought, right, okay, well, it's very obvious what I need to do. I need to change my working hours. I need to delegate more. So probably just need a little bit more management stuff so that I can kind of, delegate more. And probably need to think about reducing dentistry. Anyway, then took me about a year to decide to do that with dentistry, because I love it. I love dentistry. I still do. But I eventually got to that decision. I just thought, well, look, if I don't, then I might drop a ball, and we cannot afford to do that in clinical care. So I came to that decision. By the end of 2022 or mid 2023, I had stopped clinical practice of dentistry. And I thought, well, it makes sense. Ahmed, my other half, is very committed to dentistry. He's doing a fantastic job. Why am I trying to do it all? I just need to grieve this and pass it on and look after myself and focus more on the facial aesthetics, because what I saw then was a vision that rather than me doing all the facial aesthetics, I should now build a facial aesthetic team, and we can spread the load. So that was the vision. I was very clear on all this, but I was still stuck. And what was happening is that although I made those decisions, my nervous system was still in overdrive. And I was still thinking a lot. And, I couldn't fall asleep easily without thinking about my to-do list in the evening. I had allocated myself a day off, but the day off was a very long to-do list. And actually, what was interesting is, even though I'm not on a clinical day, why do I feel more stressed on my day off? And I realized because the whole day was about chasing this to-do list, because I was trying to clear those decks again. And because the to-do list was so long, it was not finished by the end of the day. So now I feel inadequate, and I'm going to bed feeling like I didn't finish. So this feeling was exhausting. And then I realized this is not enough. I know all this cognitively, but my mind is so used to, my brain is so wired to work hard. I'm not able to grant myself the permission. So I need a coach. Okay, fine. Decided to find a coach. Took me a while. I found a coach. And I worked with her for 3 months initially. Everything she said made sense. Started to gain awareness of some of these patterns. It was very validating. It was lovely. And then I realized that I thrive more on a kind of one-to-one work basis for that kind of thing. So I started chatting with colleagues and conferences, and one of my colleagues just said, why don't you try therapy? I have a therapist, and like basically everyone around us does. And I was like, oh. And then I kind of toyed with that idea for another few months and Googled and researched, and thought, but isn't that what we do when we're really broken? And I wasn't broken. I just knew I was in overdrive and I was over functioning, and I wanted to change it. So, and I knew that I needed to I understand. I've done some work before, and I've read a book called The Organized Mind, which is written by a neuroscientist, and I understand what the brain is doing. I know it's trying to keep me safe. I get what the amygdala is doing, but there was more, and I was like, I just need to unpack it. So anyway, I made the decision, and I thought, what is it going to take for me to do this and actually show up and turn up? And I was very lucky. I found somebody who lives right opposite the practice. And I phoned her, and she was so lovely. She sounded like Mary Poppins, or like fairy godmother vibes. And I went to see her, and it was just so lovely. She had a like an annex outside, but in a rose garden. I kid you not, it looked like something out of a movie. And Harrow on the Hill is very kind of Harry Potter was filmed at Harrow Boys School nearby, and it's got that kind of look. So that house just really fitted, but I did not expect to see that in her garden. And I was like, wow. And it just felt like I was entering a little escape place once a week for 1 hour. So I showed up every week for 1 hour, and it was incredible. It was just a safe space. I just spoke every day, every week. I brought something different, and as I was speaking every week, I realized, there are patterns here, and that there's repetition in different situations. It's not, it's not situational. It's how my brain is wired to see everything around me as something I need to fix. I'm a big problem solver. I need to keep finding stuff to fix and solve. And that's keeping my nervous system in overdrive. And my boundaries. I took a call once from a patient while I was there, and I just kind of walked outside, took a call from the patient while I was in my session. And then, when I walked back in, we talked a little bit more about that. I started to see a lot. It took me about a year. I was consistent, and I completely rewired those perspectives and made tangible shifts and felt so much better. And then I had lots of brewing ideas about how do I now pass this on to all my colleagues? Because I'd go to conferences or award nights, and it was like, how do I put this? I saw myself in everyone, but from a different lens. And my friends were sharing with me what they're dealing with, and I was like, this isn't shifts. Doesn't happen overnight. But how do I get this out without disempowering people, without criticizing anyone? Because we're all wired like that. So I got curious, and I thought, I started talking about it. I wrote a little bit about it in a journal. In the aesthetics journal, I started speaking on stages, women's stages in aesthetics, and the women panel. Why women? Because women tend to bring this stuff up because they're wearing many hats. But it doesn't mean men are not needing this. Men are too, but it just tends to be brought up by women in the leading positions anyway, at least in the aesthetic space. Anyway, so it started, and then I came across another coach who. So I had this idea that I wanted to do more of like, okay, I've always been a clinical educator. I can teach clinically, but I want to start helping around this stuff. So my own associates would come to me with, Zainab, how do you do it all? I'm like, guys, you haven't seen the background. You've seen the leader who comes into work really relaxed, and I show up like, I've got it all together, but I've done a lot of work on myself for a while, and I've gone through and like, this is what I've learned. And I started finding myself coaching them. But I very quickly realized it's very easy to put on a mentoring hat when you're trying to coach rather than a coaching hat, right? And this is where I realized, okay, I can talk the talk and I can share this stuff, but how are we going to actually affect change unless I build some tools around how to coach? And that's when I came to you, Rana.
Hey, and I taught you to be trained you to be a coach. Which is
Yeah.
amazing. I just want to pick up on some of those things because there are some incredible learning points from what you said. Firstly, burnout. The typical signs, you said some classic things, and this is really one of them. You effectively lost your joy. And that really is one of the massive signs of middle to end stage burnout. So you lose your joy, and there could be amazing, wonderful things happening, but you just don't feel it inside. You feel a sense of disconnect. You were incredibly productive, which again is a classic sign of burnout. People with burnout, actually, the productivity is one of the last things to go. But what often happens is you push, 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 but then you'll have days when you crash and feel so incredibly exhausted. And then
Exactly.
start isolating yourself socially. And what was classic is because you didn't break the pattern, you
Mm.
talked about the to-do list, and then you just did even more. And I always say to people, don't write a to-do list. And it's one of the ways of being the least productive you possibly can be. And if you want to boost yourself up, is actually to write a done list. And then the last thing you said, therapy, and you're absolutely right. And I was the same. That's how I came across coaching, because counseling and things didn't work for me. I didn't quite know what was going on with me. But it's about finding the right coach, because the type of coaching I do and I train you all in is what we call core energy coaching. So it's shifting the person inside, because you also pointed out it took you a year. Well, it should really, if you're a really powerful coach, which I know you will be as soon as you get that diploma, is you'll be able to identify and reflect those patterns at that person within a month or two, as long as they're committed to seeing every week. And I think that's one of the other differences. Like, therapy becomes this comfort zone. You go, you talk about yourself, and
Yes.
you don't talk. It doesn't necessarily action you forward. The
Yeah.
right coaching, and this is where we're all qualified, right? And it's such a difference where people call themselves a coach and they're not. I'm actually just a mentor or an advisor. If you really are a powerful coach, you should be able to shift that person within a couple of months, because
Mm.
exactly what you said, you change the pattern. By
Absolutely.
changing the pattern, that and the pointing out the commonality and learning and taking action to shift it in a
Yeah.
way that is in alignment with you, the more we stretch you
Mm.
and the more quicker you're willing to be stretched, and the longer we hold you there, then the more you change as a person.
You're
So
totally right.
yeah, I know I'm conscious of the time. So I think we just want two things. I want to obviously get on to asking you about your favorite pillar, but
Mm.
like you said, yes, you found me, and then I've trained you to be a coach, and you're about to get your diploma, which is incredible.
Mm.
So
Mm.
through that, I know you've made this plan to launch Evolve, which is going to
Mm.
allow you. You have different packages, which ultimately are going to allow you. You're going to take on some clients, because, like you said, you've seen so many friends, and it's classic in high performance professionals. We see it all the time, the same old pattern. They all need our help, but sometimes you don't know what you don't know until
Yeah.
it's too late and the signs start coming up. So for
Exactly.
you, your Evolve is a combination of some clinical mentoring for facial
Mm.
aesthetics, if people want that, combined with obviously understanding that it's all very well me teaching you a clinical skill, but you're unlikely to succeed as well unless you change and develop yourself as a person. And it's that
Mm.
combination of those two things together, right? Which
Absolutely.
facilitates.
So it's a combination which I think is needed in order to have sustainable success. Like I said, I was doing it kind of organically, and so now formalizing it through Evolve it feels great. And so the diploma will be complete by November, and uh, in parallel to it, I'm also enrolled in something called the Feminine Edge Coaching program, and that involves qualifying as a breathwork coach by the end of the year as well. Just something to integrate as well. The idea of feminine edge coaching is that a lot of women believe they can't have it all, and I get that, and I believe that you cannot have it all at the same time. Blindly, without having some higher consciousness and all of those principles being there, but you can have what you really want. And that's something that I challenged my feminine edge coach quite a lot in the beginning. So I was like, yeah, no, don't believe it. You can't have it, because I realized that was my conclusion after burnout. And so now I've created a whole new mindset around you can have what you want if your foundations are very strong. And I think actually that's, I was reading about nail it, and it's, you've put it so beautifully. These are foundations. These are the foundations. So Evolve will be a culmination of what I already have been doing for over a decade, which is teaching clinical skills in facial aesthetics, and then merging that with wherever personal growth support is needed, whether that's somebody who's got imposter syndrome, is struggling with building relationships, retaining patients, those really strong connections with patients. It might be work-life balance, and how do you transition from all the different roles really healthily? How do we prime our nervous system? Notice what's going on with yourself. It's building a deeper trust. It's all of that, values. Really getting very clear on that so that becomes an anchor. Decision making, and then business. There's an element of business there as well. Confidence with public speaking. So it's quite vast, but it's everything that is involved in what it means to be human, but also very tailored to what it means to be a healthcare professional. So yes, it's a nice combo.
Wonderful, beautiful. And on the women having it all, that means you also then need to read my first book, Women Who Want More, which will also
I'm definitely going to check that out.
It will bring everything else in line with what you've been saying. Oh, poor Bevan, he hasn't had a word in it. Bevan, ask our last question. Let's go.
No, Zainab, do you know what? You've spoken so well, and thank you for sharing all that with us, first of all. Go on then. So you're on the Nail It podcast. Go on. What is your favorite pillar and why?
I struggled with this one because I like them. I like them all. I was between integrity and intuition. I think I'm going to go with integrity, because intuition can shift. That inner compass can shift a little bit from time to time, depending on a few other things. I do like intuition because you really need to be your own point of reference and have conviction in your decisions. And when you build that self-trust, it's amazing. But integrity for me is stronger because those values are more solid. They kind of don't move as much, and they will always anchor. So I love that one.
Yeah, well, that is so in line with your quote, because that system, the integrity pillar, is the valuable being blueprint. So it's all about being. So it includes what you've mentioned, your values, but also your authenticity, your leadership, your understanding versus judgments. We've talked a bit about that today as well. We've talked about compassion. It's about your ambition, keeping it healthy. So again, you've touched on that. Your legacy, your behavior. Making sure that the behavior is conscious, and your level of excitement as well. So we want you to be excited. We want you to have your joy. So passion, purpose, all of that is included. Exactly. That the Nail It system is 38 components. It's a big old system, and sometimes some people get a little bit overwhelmed at the thought of it. But I think the biggest advice is like one little step at a time, one little change at a time. And things don't happen overnight, as you said, as Bhavin often says. But if you just keep taking one little step towards what you want, towards your desire, one is basically who you want to be. And it really can evolve. So Zainab, thank you so much for your amazing time, your beautiful smile. It's been so nice to have you.
You said nice.
Exactly, on purpose.
You have to find another word now.
It's been lovely. It's been lovely.
Lovely. No,
thank you so much.
It's been incredible and insightful and so aligned, which we absolutely love. And yes, good luck on the rest of finishing off the coaching and education diploma and the Feminine Edge program, and in your continued launch of Evolve. I know people are going to benefit so much from that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Bev and Rana. You've been amazing. I'm so proud of the work you're doing. And I'm really just so thrilled that it's moving really swiftly. Can't wait to get into the book. And we need to elevate this message in whatever way. So I am always here to support it.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, what do you think?
Yeah, she's awesome, isn't she?
She's incredible. We know that. We know that.
Do you know what? I actually know. I don't know Zainab personally, but I know her sister. She was my VT, and I know her husband, who was my clinical partner at university. So it's interesting that knowing and how similar she is to them.
I hadn't realized all that.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. And yeah, I think it was great for her to bring the burnout issue to the forefront again, because it is something that we see in all our colleagues, in the whole of dental industry, in personal lives. And I think it's really important for people to assess their burnout score and their risk. And I think that tool that you have online, which we discussed earlier, I think it's really important for people to just take the test, see where you think you are, and then where you actually are. And the simple things that you can do to stop yourself in that spiral. And as Zainab said, it's not something that happens overnight. It's not something that's acute that you hit. Obviously, it can do if you get to them worst stages. The whole point of this is prevention is better than cure. And it's good to have that out there. And her new concept sounds awesome. It sounds like something we need in dentistry, in the dental industry, evolved.
Well, it's facial aesthetics, so it's not just then for dentists anyway.
Yeah, but you guys are doing it, and I think it'll just continue to grow and grow and become really the norm. Very quickly, this message is becoming trendy, which is always helpful. But people are listening, they're recognizing the patterns within themselves, I think. Yeah.
That's what we.
And so, Bav, just to build on that for this last kind of 30 seconds, again, the frustration I have is that people wear this badge of burnout and they almost equate it as if it's the same as the flu, or you think it's really tired. And actually, the data I've been presenting lately shows how it contributes to the big four. So it will contribute to cancer, to Alzheimer's, to heart disease. It will contribute to 20% more likelihood of relationship breakdown. And we are already in a profession where relationship breakdown tends to be higher. It takes 10 to 15 years off your life. And typically you have to retire or quit work about 12 years earlier. So the ones who are pushing through, Zainab mentioned that, didn't she? The doing push through. It'd be fine to push through now, but you might push through thinking you need the money. But the reality is, guess what? You're not going to have the money down the line because you are not going to be able to work, which is quite a hard-hitting message, but it's the truth. And it's quite a powerful point in which to end. I know we joke a lot on this website. Part of it is laugh more because we want you to be happier. Happiness is a performance indicator. But the only way you're going to change your pattern is by doing work on yourself.
And also, I just want to mention, men get sad too. And it's okay to talk. And on that note, obviously, I try and joke and tease. But if any men are listening, they want to get in touch, feel free.
Thank you. Brilliant. Great episode. Thank you so much. So bye-bye for now. Please tune in next time.
Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Nail It podcast. We would love it if you would leave us a 5-star review. And if you'd like to feature as one of our guests, or you're ready to nail it, then check out our events, programs, and educational courses by visiting nailitindentistry.com.